the Arbor DDA. Gary Warren.
Here.
Newton Clark. Here. Russ Collins.
Here.
Lee Guy.
Here.
Jennifer Hall.
Here.
Roger Hewitt.
Here.
John Heacha.
Here.
Bill Monstein. Here. John Mowat.
Here.
Keith Ward.
Here.
Sandy Smith.
Here.
John Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Susan. First item on the agenda is audience participation. We have 4 spots and actually only 3 people on the agenda, but Ed Biametti did approach me and asked to be the 4th speaker, so we have all of our spots filled. Our first speaker is Hal Wolf, Dexter and Arbor Run, and please everyone remember there's a 4-minute limit.
Hello, thank you. Yes, I want to come and speak briefly about the race last year and about the participation that we got with the DDA last year, or this year actually, last year's race, which we were very appreciative of. I've been the race director for 3 years. Next year will be my 4th year, and I've done a number of things about the race to try to raise its stature, such as having a Friday night banquet for our marquee sponsors, but also bringing a marquee athlete. Such as last year we had Sheila Tormina come and speak and was there the whole weekend. This year we have Nick Willis, who won the bronze medal in the Olympics, who's a U of M graduate, who's going to be there. So I've done a number of things to try to help raise the stature of the race, and I asked for some support from Susan, and from Jennifer also showed some real interest in helping us out, and was very appreciative of that. And so we were able to, for the first time ever, to get full use of the surface lot, which was very important to me. Also, Susan was kind enough to waive the parking meter bag fees for us for the race, and I was also very appreciative of that. And certainly, if we will continue that relationship, we will recognize the DDA as a sponsor of our event, which I think would be only appropriate. So, as a token of my appreciation for myself and of the race committee and the Ann Arbor Track Club board, I want to present this plaque, Jennifer, to you, which is a just something that you guys can put somewhere and show as a sign of our appreciation of your support.
Thank you.
And just so nobody has to go away empty-handed, I also happen to have a dozen race t-shirts. There are mediums and larges, and so I believe there's a dozen of them here. So if anybody's bigger than a large, no smalls.
Bigger than large,
Brought what I had. So yeah, one other thing I actually wanted to mention, as long as we have all this goodwill flowing here, I am going to make a proposal at some point soon, and it's still a little bit in the formative stages. I would like to consider having a permanent Dexter Ann Arbor Run finish line plaque on Main Street. My proposal for that is something similar to what's being done at Maynard and Thompson, with these sort of artificial pressed-in bricks to give sort of a fancy look, and potentially in the middle of that could be a removable iron or brass inlaid physical plaque. And I'm working on that. I've been getting some prices, and I don't have all the details buttoned up yet, but I'm going to give you a copy, and I think it would be a great symbolic gesture to show solidify the bond and the commitment between the race and the city. And this will be our 37th year, and I believe it'll be our 28th year finishing on Main Street. So I think it would be a neat thing and something that I'd be proud of. So in order to get the city's support, I think it'd be great if we could get the DDA support as well. So how this is going to proceed, I don't know, but I just thought I would at least mention it today and leave that thought in your guys' mind to think about as I continue to do my work on that. So anyhow, that's all I had to say. Thanks again to everybody. I wanted to extend my special thanks to you for your support, and Susan also.
Thanks,
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I just wanted to thank Hal for being here and for thanking the DDA. I've done the race a couple of times, and when Hal came to us, I don't know, it was sometime last year ahead of the race asking for some help, I thought, of course the DDA can do this. This race finishes in downtown Ann Arbor, and if you've ever been to the Taste of Ann Arbor or the finish of this race, there are thousands of people in downtown that day. And I think this is a perfect partnership, and I'm really glad that he was able to work with Susan and staff to make this happen, and these few things like meter bags in the parking lot to make the race happen, because so much work goes into it. And again, it's thousands of people in downtown. And
It was the biggest race ever. We had 6,700 registrants and well over 6,000 finishers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Kessler from Mercantile Exchange.
Hello, I'm Mike, and I just wanted to let you guys know what we're doing at 118 South Main with Mercantile Exchange and raise the awareness and just help get the word out. We're trying to provide a productive work environment for people that are often overlooked, the independents, 1099 individuals. They don't have metrics, there's not good numbers, they're hard to measure. I've been trying to figure out what percentage of the working population they represent. It's over 10%, but I can't get good numbers on it. At Mercantile Exchange, we give them a productive work environment where they're able to interact with other people, because they don't often have that. And it provides them a community, because only prisoners work in isolation. So it allows them to have that norm experience, like where everybody knows your name, you come in, it's familiar and comfortable. For $100 a month, it's relatively inexpensive. You have access to the space to work there. That includes conference rooms, robust Wi-Fi, just everything you'd have in an office. Comfortable desks, chairs, everything's configurable, you can move it around. We focus on two things. One is diversity, so our members, their skill sets, we recruit as broadly as we can. When you look through the window, everybody looks like they're coding or a tech person, but anybody hunched over a computer, that's kind of what they look like. But we have an archaeologist, we have a novelist, several filmmakers, consultants, we have a person who's working for the UN doing carbon offset, a translator, a publisher of children's books, so it's all over the place, and we like that. The other pillar is a transfer of knowledge, because when you're isolated, again, you just don't have access to that organizational knowledge. So through just proximity to other people who have different skills than you, hey, can you help me with this, right down to structured events. Every Friday at 11:30, we have a free brown bag lunch. The topics vary. Tomorrow, or Friday, rather, is experience economy with Kathy McDonald, and then Richard Sheridan is coming in the following Friday, and very diverse, very eclectic, but always interesting and always sharing some sort of knowledge. The other part we have is an 850 square foot space available for rent, because there seems to be a dearth of that in downtown Ann Arbor. So when there's an event or somebody wants to hold a meeting, we have that available. It's straight up just $75 an hour, and the people who rent it provide their own catering or services beyond that. We have a U of M class that meets in there every Monday morning as a sort of a gimmick to get them downtown, and have them attend class at 8 a.m. And there's also several local businesses host planning sessions or meetings or rent it when they have exceed their space needs. So just wanted to let you know what's going on there and make you aware of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tamara Reel from Ann Arbor Arts Alliance.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to address you, and my lovely assistant is going to hand out our Washtenaw County cultural plans. The Arts Alliance is a 501c3 organization, and we're based here in Ann Arbor. We serve the entire county, but primarily the Ann Arbor area, because most of the cultural organizations in our county are located here. I'm coming before you today because I am hoping that the Downtown Development Authority will agree to be a partner with the Arts Alliance as we create a web-based arts portal for Washtenaw County. We have secured already $75,000 for this project, and we are requesting $25,000, which would help us achieve our $100,000 goal and enable us to complete this project. This project comes right out of the cultural plan, and I've given you all a copy. If you haven't seen it, it represents about 2 years' worth of work, input from 5,000 people around the county, directly 1,000 people, specifically from Ann Arbor, who talked about what they would like to see in terms of cultural development in our county over the next 5 years. The number one issues the cultural organization told us they wanted to see was a centralized arts presence on the internet. Right now, there is a lot of information out there, but it's not well organized, and so it's difficult for consumers to get information about arts events and activities. It's difficult for the arts organizations to get that information out. So that's what the Arts Alliance is working on. What we're creating is a web portal, and a portal is basically a gateway to information. So this is something that will be one source for all things arts and cultural. It will have information ranging from times and events taking place here in Ann Arbor and elsewhere, as well as sound clips, videos from individual artists. This is not going to replace anybody's individual website, but what it will do is aggregate information and make it much easier for our audiences to find out information about our web sources, our art sources. Really what this is a piece of infrastructure to help the marketing ability of our cultural organizations when they're facing a time of unprecedented challenge. Nationally and locally, we all know the economic downturn has really given a hard time to arts organizations, more so even than our social service organizations, because funds are being moved away from the arts. So why should the Downtown Development Authority be interested in this site? 3 important reasons. One, you're serving arts and cultural organizations that are based within the DDA district. Inside our document, there's a list of the cultural organizations that directly participated in this. I can't give you a list of the Arts Alliance members because we are just starting a membership program, but we serve all of the cultural organizations in this area. And the DDA-based organizations range from everyone such as the University Musical Society to 826 Michigan, the literacy group, from the Ann Arbor Film Festival to the Ann Arbor Art Center. In addition, groups that will benefit from this are arts organizations that are not based in the DDA area, but put on programs here, such as Wild Swan Theater or the Ann Arbor African American Cultural and Historic Center. This is not just for nonprofit arts organizations. For-profit arts organizations will be listed on this site as well. So we're looking at places like Salo Chabelle Gallery or the Bead Gallery or Hollanders. Visitor attraction. This is going to be the go-to site for arts information throughout the county. And what we are doing is creating information and a calendar of events that will link to the DDA's website that will provide information about restaurants, parking facilities, shops that are adjacent to all of our cultural attractions. At the back of this document is an economic impact study which the DDA helped fund about 6 years ago. And in there, we can document that arts and culture have a $165 million economic impact on our county. And folks, whoops, am I out of time? Well, I went as fast as I could. You will get a letter on this. I hope you will refer this to committee and favorably consider this. This is really helping to strengthen the infrastructure in the area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think this is something that we will refer to partnerships.
And just as a general note, I've been hanging around the cultural art scene for 30 years now. And Tamara has done with the Arts Alliance what several organizations over those 30 years have tried to do with enthusiasm but without great success. And Tamara's leadership of the Arts Alliance has been very, very effective in terms of creating a forum for the arts to talk to the general public in an effective way, but more particularly for the arts to be able to come up with a message that's a little clearer and a little more effective in our community. So I just want to thank Tamara for her excellent work at a task that many have tried and all have failed as far as I'm concerned.
Our next speaker, Ed Biametti.
I'm reading from prepared remarks that were published on the AnnArbor.com website on August 19th, and I'll provide them to the chair for inclusion in the minutes. I missed the special meeting of the Ann Arbor DDA board on August 19th. That's okay. Ryan Stanton is here to cover it, and he wrote a story about it. But how I managed to miss it and what it took to find the public posting that announced the meeting is a story worth relating. I showed up at the DDA offices a few minutes before noon, and I saw that the meeting room had been set up, but no one was there. Puzzled, I walked back to the staff offices to see if anyone was there. I was told that the meeting time of the special meeting was 1:30 p.m. Typically, DDA meetings involving the full board begin at noon. I asked the obvious question, how was I, as a member of the public, supposed to know this? There was no notice of a public meeting posted at the DDA offices, no agenda, not even a sign that said next public meeting at. I was told that these notices were published at City Hall. City Hall is only a few blocks away from the DDA, so I went there to look. I saw the big glass board that has all the notices of meetings at it, but there was no notice of today's meeting, just a notice of all the regularly scheduled annual meetings for the group with a phone number to call for special and committee meetings. So I called, and the person I talked to, the person at the DDA, Joan, said she'd be right over to help me find it. If you haven't been to City Hall for a while, you wouldn't know that there's a tack board to the left of the entrance of the wall as you come in. On this tack board, you will find all manner of notices, notices of lawsuits, legal notices, meeting announcements, meeting cancellations, and for all I know, though I did not verify it, it would be reasonable to find notices of vegan potlucks or dinette sets for sale. It's kind of like city government's very own version of Craigslist, all available for public perusal, paper tacked up to look at or take with you or leave something there. And when Joan came by, she helpfully and graciously pointed out that the DDA special meeting notice was there for anyone to see, as long as you knew to look at the very far right of the tack board down behind a taxi cab board notice. To be fair, it's a small matter. I could have looked at the DDA's website, which clearly stated the date. I could have asked the DDA to send me notices by email. It's entirely possible that it was actually in my inbox or that I had seen it somewhere online. But not everyone in this town has email or even has access to the internet in any convenient way. And some of those people might have had their only convenient way of figuring out what's happening next in municipal government by reading about it in print or by looking on the official public notice board. A bit later, I stopped back at City Hall to speak with City Clerk Jacqueline Boudry. When I told her my confusion about the official notice, she noted that the big glass cabinet with meeting notices was new and that the old process had every legal meeting notice tacked up on the tax strip. She also said that the clerk's office would be happy to update the board for any organization with a notice by telephone or email from the group's representative. Let me make some, what I hope are helpful suggestions, not in the spirit of criticizing municipal government for the sake of criticizing municipal government, but rather to point out some small changes that would work within existing procedures. First, the Ann Arbor DDA should post all of its meeting notices prominently in its own offices, as well as at City Hall. It's within both the letter and the spirit of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, which says, Section 15.264, public notice of meeting generally, contents, places of posting. The following provision shall apply with respect to public notice of meetings. A public notice shall always contain the name of the public body to which the notice applies, its telephone number if one exists, and its address. B, a public notice for a public body shall always be posted at its principal office and any other locations considered appropriate by the public body. Cable television may also be utilized for purposes of posting public notice. The principal office of the Ann Arbor DDA is 150 South 5th Avenue, Suite 301, so notices should be posted there as well. The second small procedural change is that the office of the city clerk is ready and willing, actually eager, in speaking with Jackie, to update the main meeting board if staff from various city boards and commissions are willing to send those notices to the office. It would be a service to the city and its citizens if the official glass-walled meeting notice case was complete and accurate and the city stopped using the tack board for official notices. So I'm not sure what to do with the unofficial tack board, except it looks like a good place to advertise your next arts event, race, or lecture. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'll take that. It's also available electronically as the URL. Before we get to the next item on our agenda, the mayor has something he would like to say.
Well, this is hot off the presses. Just handed to me before the meeting. The American Planning Association has a program called Great Places in America, and I'll read a paragraph here that they have on that. APA's flagship program celebrates places of exemplary character, quality, and planning. Places are selected annually and represent the gold standard in terms of having a true sense of place, cultural and historical interest, community involvement, and a vision for tomorrow. APA Great Places offer better choices for where and how people work and live. They are enjoyable, safe, and desirable. They are places where people want to be. America's truly great streets, neighborhoods, and public spaces are defined by many criteria, including architectural features, accessibility, functionality, and community involvement. And this is part of their segment called Great Streets. And they named the 10 great streets in the United States of America. Some of them, one of them's in Alaska, one of them is in Maine. Milwaukee has one of the great streets, and there are 2 in Michigan, Front Street in Traverse City, Michigan, and South Main Street in Ann Arbor, Michigan was just named one of the 10 great streets. And I'll just read a little blurb they have next to our street here. They've got a picture of the Arc. On their webpage, South Main Street is downtown Ann Arbor's center of activity and community gathering place. The continuous rhythm of detailed masonry building storefronts right at the sidewalk's edge contributes to an exciting pedestrian environment. The City of Ann Arbor's continuous efforts to preserve these buildings, most housing locally owned businesses, ensures that the street's unique appearance and character remain intact.
Good for us.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Ray, thank you for, we were trying to decide where we're going to fit that in.
That's wonderful.
Thank you for your patience.
Delighted to hear that. I know the work that went into that, too, in order to get that recognition.
The
People in
next
Ann Arbor.
item is reports from city boards and commissions, and Ray Detter from the Downtown Area Citizens.
And I really have 4 action items that we discussed last night at the Citizens Advisory Council. One having to do with an article that just recently appeared in on Courthouse Square in the Ann Arbor Observer, and it was entitled "Trouble in Courthouse Square." And I've done presentations to you before on this issue, and I'm not going to do it again, except to say that we last night decided that we were going to invite Sandy Smith, who is a representative of the First Ward, and also Sabre Briere from the First Ward, to a meeting with us in order to see whether or not we can develop some kind of strategy for doing whatever it is that we can to improve the situation in Courthouse Square and plan for the future with regard to its sale, probably next December. The second item also has to do with Sandy Smith, and that is to congratulate her with regard to on Monday having presented a resolution to the City Council that was passed unanimously to continue moving in the direction of eliminating the danger of having parking meters in residential neighborhoods. And that was combined also with a commitment to do parking permits in those areas surrounding the downtown. And we want to give every bit of support that we possibly can to that direction, because that fits into the whole nature of what the DDA wants to do, and that is to have a comprehensive transportation and parking system that will involve the downtown and perhaps the neighborhoods around it. And in relationship to that last night, but not directly related to the parking permits, parking meters in the residential neighborhoods, the Citizens Council wanted to go on record really as strongly supporting the extending of hours of parking meters from 6 to 9 in the downtown. And we're not going to go into detail. There's a reason for that, but the reasons are very good with regard to that. It will be a benefit to the downtown in the long run and a benefit to the kind of system that I think that the DDA wants to develop with regard to parking and transportation. We're all behind that. And the other item where we want to give congratulations at the same time to state our position for the future is to thank the mayor and also the city council, who on Monday listened to the large number of people who commented on the nature of their future design review process and also our zoning, A2D2, in the area of the downtown. And those people who have responded with regard to this recognize the need in the downtown for more time, first of all, which the council has given us to November rather than to October, in order to get this thing even better than it currently is. And it's gradually moving in the direction of getting better. But we in the Citizens Advisory Council strongly support a mandatory process, but a voluntary compliance system, such as we had in Boulder, and that was mentioned the other night. Many of us were there at that particular point. So that what we will have is a setup in the city of Ann Arbor of a board of qualified people, 5-member board of qualified people who will take a look at our design guidelines and be a board that major developments will go to in the process really of moving ahead on their site plans. And they will go through the same process they do now up to that point, except it will go to the board. The board's findings would then be decided, we hope, by consensus, and they would be passed on to the community and also the Planning Commission for voluntary compliance by developers. And that would work. It's worked in other areas. Some areas have mandatory compliance. But I think at this particular point that most people agreed that in Ann Arbor we would try voluntary compliance to those design guidelines. We will all learn in the process what we think good design is, because of course people disagree on those sorts of issues. And as a result, really, in a year, if we decide we want to make it mandatory, or if we decide in a year that we want to change it in any way that we desire, that we can improve on it and eventually end up in a situation that will be a model for other places with regard to the use of design guidelines with new zoning and an amended downtown plan. Thank you.
Thank you. We next have a presentation from Nancy Shore of Get Downtown.
Hello.
Okay, we're going to set up the slides here. Well, while this runs up, I just want to remind you, Nancy Shore, Director of the Get Downtown program, and the mission of our program is to provide commuting programs and services to downtown employees and employers. And as part of that mission, one of the things that we like to do is take stock of what's going on downtown with commuters, as well as take stock of how people are perceiving our program. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today is our evaluation. I think we're gonna. Is that good for you? Yes. And I provided you with a more extensive presentation in your packets. This is sort of the short Cliff's Notes version to kind of get to the meat of what's going on. So, Get Downtown evaluations have been conducted in the past. The last one was done in 2005. And again, the idea of them is to both provide benchmarking for what is going on downtown in terms of employee commuting behavior, as well as looking at how people are perceiving the Get Downtown program, what their attitudes are. And for the first time this year, we actually looked at employers as well as employees. We had 2 separate surveys. And so that was a way for us to understand that there are people in our downtown that are running businesses that have different needs than people that are actually providing commuting downtown. So the evaluation that we had this year was conducted March through May, and we tried to get most of it done before we did our commuter challenge. We had 416 businesses and 352 employees. And so the businesses were the ones that responded to our employer survey, and then the 352 employees were those that responded to our employee survey. And just before I show you some of the results, I do want to give a little word of caution, which is true in all of these, is basically how the survey works is you go into a business, you provide them with those surveys and say, can you please hand them out to your employees? Employees are probably going to self-select somewhat in terms of who's going to fill out that survey related to if they care about this issue, if they feel like they have the time to do it. So there's always going to be a little bit of that self-selection bias. And there's a little bit more interesting demographic data that we got in this survey that compares differently to some of the other surveys, which I'll talk about. So some of the things that just to keep in mind for this survey, what we found was, and I'm not sure that this is indicative of what's actually going on downtown relative to what actually happened in this survey. The people that we have in this survey live further away, are older, and had more household income than the ones in 2005. And as you can see, that's really going to shape some of the data that we saw. It's still relevant because actually in some ways it's good to understand some of the commuting habits of people that might be making a little bit more money, being a little further away. But in terms of when we compare, there are some differences from the 2005 data versus the 2009 in terms of the employees themselves. So this is just sort of the overall idea of what we've been getting in the past several years in terms of commuting behavior for employees. As you can see, the drive alone rates have actually been pretty consistent across the surveys that we've conducted. The one that is the outlier from what I've seen was actually that 2005 data.
And as you'll see, given that more people lived closer in and had a lower income in 2005 versus 2009, it makes sense that there is a lower driver loan rate for that. And also, I just wanted to give as a caveat, we ourselves did not conduct these studies. These were done by other parties. The University of Michigan helped with the 2001 to 2005 surveys, and in 2009 we got Survey Sciences Group, which is a downtown survey company, to do the survey for us. So, something else that's interesting is as you further break down the data, even though we looked at the most frequent mode of transportation, we had sort of maybe lower numbers than you might think. A lot of people are actually occasionally using some of these modes, and I'm sure a lot of you fall into that category where you might not be doing it as your most frequent mode of transportation, but maybe 3 times or more per month you are using those modes. And that's what we found was if we actually break it down and ask people, what do you do maybe 3 times a month? We see that there are more people using these modes of transportation that might be evident just when asking about their most frequent mode. And I think that this is one of the most telling slides that I have in terms of this breakdown that both distance and money matter extremely when it comes to people's commuting choices. We found with statistical significance, which is we're 95% confident that this didn't happen by chance, that if you live 5 or more miles away from Ann Arbor, or if you make $75,000 or more in income, household income, you are very much more likely to drive alone. And so that's going to have some implications as to maybe what the DDA can do going forward in setting priorities for how to decrease the number of people that are using single occupancy commuting. And age, full-time, part-time, gender, those were not as much of predictors of people's commuting behavior. In terms of the parking situation, obviously transportation and parking go hand in hand. We did see some differences again in the 2005 and 2009 data in terms of where employees are parking. Many more of them in this survey indicated that they park at a public parking structure, and many more of them said it was easier for them, or very easy. Over half said it was very easy for them to park than what we had in 2005. And then we asked employers what kind of parking benefits they're offering. We had a split 30% to 30% of either we don't offer anything or we offer some sort of on-site parking. And then we had about 20% saying that they pay the entire cost of parking for all their employees. So there's still a contingent of employers out there that are providing all the parking for their employees and not necessarily having any sort of economic reasons to maybe have their employees do something different. So this is not surprising. Why do people drive alone? Convenience is huge. I mean, that's huge in almost anything that we do in our life these days. If it's not convenient, it's hard to get us to do it. This has implications a lot more for the Get Downtown program in terms of how we can message, but also it provides some thoughts about when you're creating other transportation options, you have to really look at convenience and time as two of the things that are going to be most important for people's decision making as to why they might be doing something different than driving alone. One of the things we also asked people in this survey is did they change their commuting behavior in the last year? And 100 respondents out of the 300 some that we surveyed, so about 30% said that they had changed their mode. And if we looked at the top drivers, the 2 I highlighted relate directly to Get Downtown, but some of the other ones, desire to be more environmentally friendly, gas prices, those are things that I think most people know about. Moving to a new home, again, distance matters. Price matters. The gas prices, as we all saw, definitely drove some commuting behavior. And then there is that convenience. If you live half a mile from work, it's actually pretty convenient for you to walk to work relative to having to drive and find a place to park and dealing with all of that. In terms of the obstacles and the things that I call encouragers to some of the different modes, obstacles, pretty consistent as we've seen in other surveys. Time, there's no service. Some of the things that we're encouraging, one of the ones I highlighted, express service, zip car, service closer to the home, those are the kind of things that people wanted to see. With the Go Pass, I would say that little caveat or that advertisement that we used to see, 9 out of 10 doctors choose Crest or whatever toothpaste. I would say that that is what we're seeing. Over 90% of employers that are offering the Go Pass say that that's one of the things that they think is most useful about the Get Downtown program and what they would most take advantage of if they were using services by the Get Downtown program. So that's clearly a benefit that employers are seeing in terms of employees. There are lots of employees that are saying, when I have the Go Pass, I'm actually riding the bus more. I hadn't used the bus until I got my Go Pass. I drive less. So clearly there are implications for driving behavior with the Go Pass. In terms of biking, People have issues with getting sweaty and dirty, which is interesting. And since I bike to work today, and I bike to work a lot, and there's a lot of reasons why people feel that. But then there are things that the DDA can do to make that better. And in terms of the encouragers, bike paths, bike conditions, again, laying that framework like the DDA did with the wayfinding signs. If you put things on the street that show people this is where bikes should be going, it helps people feel comfortable biking. Walking, one of the ones that was interesting related to the DDA again was the sidewalk conditions. That was something that, again, a small percentage of people, but there were people that said, hey, if you helped improve sidewalk conditions, if you gave me maybe access to a shower somewhere I could go that I wouldn't get dirty, maybe I would walk to work relative to what I do now. In terms of what employers were saying, we had an overwhelming majority of people said that they knew about the Get Downtown program. Obviously, we can still do more to increase the awareness. In terms of, on a scale of 1 to 7, we had employees rating us really highly in terms of the perceived benefit of the program, and that Go Pass and non-pass are employers that offer the Go Pass and employers that do not offer the Go Pass. So obviously, also when employers get a Go Pass, they have an interaction with Get Downtown that shows them the perceived benefit. And what I thought was also interesting about this is not only do they see a benefit of the Get Downtown program for their employees, they also see it as a benefit for their business. So it's not just about their employees, it's something that they see impacting their business positively. So, 2 slides, one's take-home points, one's what the DDA can do. First of all, I also just want to caution that I think that this information is useful, but it's only one point in time, and as we continue to benchmark, we might be able to see some other trends. But it's really hard to survey employees, and I think all of you who work at businesses know how hard it is sometimes to get that information. So we have it. I think it provides some relevant data, but it's not going to be the whole picture. Get Downtown program seen as a benefit. Go Passes are huge, and money and distance matter when it comes to commuting choice. So what does this mean for the DDA? Well, one of the ones that maybe doesn't jump out, but jumped out at me was to increase affordable housing for employees. If the survey data shows us that more employees that live closer to work are going to be using alternative modes of transportation, then there's obviously an interest in trying to encourage employees to live closer to work. And one of the ways to do that, again, is just to help provide that housing, workforce housing, more housing downtown, housing where people can get to their jobs and not have to worry about getting into their car. Talking about market-based parking pricing, this is something that the DDA has continued to talk about, but again, that's adjusting parking rates so that people pay more for where they want to park. Increasing parking rates in general, I think, is something that is going to help influence some of those people that are price sensitive to look at using another alternative. More frequent express bus service. This is something that I know we've talked about again and again. One of the things that we saw was about half of the employees that we surveyed live in Ann Arbor. The second largest group live in Ypsilanti. Again, there's that tie between the two communities, and how can we get that connection more efficient for those employees that want to use the bus. Improving bike paths and routes and bike amenities, and improving sidewalk conditions are the things that I think that the DDA can really work on. And I see this all as, again, as Ray Detter spoke of, a transportation system. So I wouldn't say that it would be effective to do one of these without thinking about the others, because they all do relate to one another. But that's sort of the results that we had from our survey. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes, Newcomb?
First, going back to your take-home points, in so much as surveying employees is tricky. Yeah, so what do you see the biggest barrier in front of you to getting better point-of-sale data, i.e. scanning cards, or better understanding of the people that aren't able to survey? My time at Red Hawk, the 8 years I was with Roger, most of the people that use those bus passes were the guys in the kitchen.
Right.
These are not guys that are going home and logging into their internet and filling out surveys.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest barrier that perhaps we can help with, or working with the partners of the Get Downtown program, to actually get a reliable set of data? And what is that reliable set of data?
Well, first of all, this was a paper survey that was distributed, but anything that we can do to provide more funding to do this, I mean, this was like a $24,000, $25,000 survey, and that probably didn't provide enough funding to really get at those people that you're talking about. We didn't have a Spanish language version of this survey. It was something that I would have liked to have done. So I think that that's one thing in terms of that data. I also think that with the DDA's Transportation Committee, it would be great to get some of this data for residents, for visitors, for UOM affiliated individuals, because this is just one piece of the puzzle. These are obviously people that are consistently doing something, whereas some of those other groups are maybe a little bit more occasional or infrequent. But it would be able to give you a bigger piece of the picture to get that data as well, would be my another caveat there. Yes,
I had one question. On your biking slide, you had obstacles and then the encouragers. So it was a huge percentage of obstacle for the obstacle is don't want to get sweaty or dirty. And I noticed that on the encouragers, there's not a list of shower facilities or lockers. There was on the walkers. Was it asked of bikers?
It was asked. It just wasn't. They did not say that that was the biggest issue for them. So again, this is people self-reporting what they're saying.
It's just curious. I would be interested in knowing more from those bikers because so many other communities have shower facilities in their in areas where they have high density of commuters, and that's something that would be this talked about at the transit center over by the hospital. It'd be interesting to see, having one downtown. I'm just curious to why.
Right, and I would also say, I think a lot of it might just be that that's something that people can think about as a visible way to think about commuting downtown or anywhere. I mean, that's one of the things that I think about. When you come downtown, what are the markers that show you that biking is encouraged downtown, that cycling is encouraged? Obviously, the on-street parking is huge. I think that that's made a big difference. So what are the other things that can be done to show people, hey, when you come downtown, this is a place we want you to bike. Here's some amenities for you to make that easier for you. I think that the DDA is going in the right direction. You clearly understand that. But I'm hearing from individuals that there are some other things that could be done as well to encourage them. And I think, bike showers would be awesome.
Well, thanks, Nancy, for this. This is nice, and I understand the surveying difficulties. But I think if we keep doing it, we'll even things out. I was just going to point out a couple things about what the DDA is doing too, though, as we see this. And time is a funny one for biking for me because, as you know, you can just about get anywhere, particularly in the downtown area, faster on your bike than you can in a car. But we're making a lot of progress. I think 5th Division is going to add a lot to this, just having those two in place. You may not know this, but the city actually doubled. We had a goal that we not only met, but we exceeded by 100%. So, or actually, we had hoped to increase the bike lane system by 300% and ended up increasing it by 600%. That was relatively easy because we started in such a low number of bike lanes, so it wasn't all that hard. The new goal is to double what we now have, which is a significant challenge, but it's something I'm sure the city will meet. But as we continue to do stuff like 5th Division, this is just going to open up. And these obstacles to biking are being worked on, and they're going to be coming apart. And we're going to make it easier and better for people to walk around town, or to ride around town. And the same thing goes for the pedestrian stuff. We're a very highly rated community for pedestrian amenities, but we still see people saying you need some improvements that'll make this even better, and we'll have even more people walk.
Yeah, and also related to what Newcomb was talking about in terms of the data, we've talked about in the DDA Transportation Committee, wouldn't it be great to have pedestrian counts and bike counts for downtown? Because in my personal perception, there is definitely more people cycling downtown. I mean, I see over at the People's Food Co-op where that new on-street bike parking is, that is loaded up. And on Farmers Market days, that's loaded up, and all the other parking around it is.
Loaded up.
So there's in the State Street one as well. So there's clearly more people, but again, we don't have anything that we can point to say that this is true and to show people the benefit of those individuals in terms of where they're shopping and how much money they're spending, because I think that all of that data would really help to continue to enhance the DDA's mission of supporting all these modes of transportation.
Yeah, I guess my point was that DDA is on the right track.
Yeah,
I think 5th Division will make a big difference to cyclists.
I move we put Dave Askin in charge of the survey.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is status of task force efforts with DDA membership, the first of which is A2D steering committee. Roger.
Thank you. We had been dealing with the design guidelines on the steering committee. We had sent back the guidelines to our consultants to try to streamline them make them easier to understand, shorter, and essentially a more comprehensible document. We've got that at the end of August. There was an open house on September 2nd with the public. There were two basic comments. One was that this was coming up rather quickly, although the design guidelines have been out there for over 2 years. The revised version, which consolidated things, had just been released. And there was also concern that they were voluntary, that there was no mandatory review involved with the design guidelines. And on September 14th, there was a working session with City Council, DDA, and Planning Commission to go over the design guidelines. Those comments were forwarded to the City Council from the open house. The consultant was there to answer any questions, and those are now in City Council's lap, as is the rezoning, which at least last I knew was scheduled to be voted on in second reading on October 19th meeting. I should point out that the DDA resolution from June making some recommendations to zoning changes are not currently part of the proposed zoning change that's going to, at least as my best knowledge, is going to be voted on October 19th. That pretty much finishes the steering committee's responsibilities for the first section of implementing the Calthorpe study, which were 5 issues. Updating the historic districts, streamlining the development process, redoing the zoning, coming up with a comprehensive parking plan, and putting in design guidelines. Unless something comes back to the steering committee on those subjects, we have completed our work on that. It was always the intention that after that work was completed, we would look at other recommendations from the Calthorpe report on what other issues should be addressed in the downtown. But as we stand right now, we've completed our first part of the work. And that's all I have. Glad to answer any questions.
As Ray noted at the outset of the meeting, I made an announcement prior to the public hearing that we were very interested in and have always been interested in. I know as one of the people who got the design guidelines process kicked off, along with Councilmember Johnson a long time ago, we always wanted to have a mandatory review and a panel of people that would be both expert and residents of the city that could be very knowledgeable. And we've also pushed that back into November, so don't be surprised if the A2D2 things are pushed back into November as well. And frankly, there's no reason to hurry up with this. There really aren't any petitions coming to the city at this time, and we should get it right as possible, although I would anticipate with something as complicated as all of this that we're going to want to take a close look at this as time goes on and be willing and open to opening it up and making some changes and adjustments as needed. Because it will be something new for us when we get into the design guidelines. But we don't see a hurry to do it, and I would like to see it done by the end of the year, so it's something we can put to bed and start using when something does come in the door.
Thank you. Next, the committee to discuss a mutually beneficial financial agreement with City Council. Sandy.
I have nothing to report this time.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Would someone please move the minutes of the annual meeting continuation on September 2nd, 2009?
So moved.
Support. Supported by Lee. Any corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are accepted. Next, approval, September 2nd, 2009, regular DDA meeting. Would somebody please move those minutes?
So moved.
Support.
By Russ, seconded by Lee. Any corrections? All in favor of approving the minutes of September 2nd? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next, we have subcommittee reports. First up is Capital Improvements Committee. I see Mike Ortlieb on this, but he's not here. Okay.
He was there, but he doesn't.
We first of all have a resolution which is on page 16. which I would like somebody to move.
I would gladly move that.
I'll
Moved by
support
Roger,
it.
seconded by me. This resolution is to begin engineering work on the earth retention system. Basically, we were sort of expecting to have a construction manager in place at this time or somebody in charge of the project. We still do not have a guaranteed maximum price, so that has been delayed until our next committee meeting. We'll be talking about that. So in order to keep the project on schedule, we need to approve this so that design and engineering drawings for the earth retention system can take place. Any other discussion? Russ?
So this expense will ultimately be part of the bonded expenses for this project.
That's correct.
It will be part of the guaranteed maximum price, too.
And how does the, if we adopt an earth retention energy system, how will that affect the construction cost?
I don't think at this point it will affect the construction costs at all. Adrian, would you like to answer
I just want to make sure that
from an engineering standpoint? Would you step up, Adrian Arola, who is from Park Avenue Consultants?
I want to make sure I understand the question.
Well, this is the $50,000 is for the design.
Yes.
And the earth retention system was sort of brought in late in the game as an idea. Will having one be any more expensive in terms of
Are you
construction?
thinking about the
Geothermal,
geothermal?
yeah.
Because this doesn't have anything to do with the geothermal,
Never mind.
right?
Am I?
Keeping the dirt out.
And that's what I thought that you meant, and,
Yeah.
and that's why I was hesitant to answer the
Well,
question.
save my question for that.
But they are completely unrelated. One does not interfere with the other.
Okay.
Jennifer?
I'm just curious how this relates to the future plans. So we're just expediting one part of what, so there'll be another version of some bigger construction plan that will come forward?
That's correct. Adrian, maybe you could explain to us why we are behind schedule on this, some of the issues that Chrisman is facing.
Well, we are not really behind. We're just postponing accepting the guaranteed maximum price. The construction services that Chrisman is providing to the DDA include providing bids, obtaining bids, which were submitted, and there are some clarification points because of different systems that were proposed by the bid respondents. And in order to have a clear idea of which system is going to work best, we need to have further engineering studies, which would be the responsibility of the contractor. That resolution enables the contractor to provide those studies, which would be part of the bid cost. So all you are allowing is, at this point, enabling them to begin the studies without engaging the full construction system.
Can I ask a follow-up
Sure,
question?
go ahead.
This plan that's being designed then by Chrisman, could, if it was, if I understand it, if the bids were on schedule, would this plan be maybe done by some other company aside from Chrisman?
Well, the design is not by Chrisman. This is by the air retention contractor. It's being facilitated by Chrisman, and it would fall within the guaranteed maximum price.
But Chrisman may not be the construction firm that's hired. I'm just wondering how this relates to the bids that Chrisman is going. I'm a little confused.
We have gotten bids on the earth retention system. There are two bids, and there's actually a fair difference between the two because they're using two different approaches. The engineering, which is being done by one of, I believe, probably the lowest bidder, is going to clarify how that's done so our engineers and Chrisman can confirm that that will indeed work in this situation. It had been our intention to come forward with a guaranteed maximum price that would include this today, but because of the earth retention system and some other uncertainties in the bidding, they wanted a couple more weeks before they came up with a guaranteed maximum price that they would be held to. But to make sure the project goes forward on schedule, we needed to get this engineering out of the way. So we broke this out of, essentially we're doing this earlier than the guaranteed maximum price. As soon as that price is ready in a couple weeks, I think we're suggesting a special board meeting to go ahead and approve it.
And the price is coming from Chrisman? Or
The bid is actually coming from a subcontractor. Chrisman is putting out the bids and reviewing them along with our consultants. But the actual price on this is from a subcontractor. And I can't remember who that subcontractor is.
We have Hartman.
Hartman.
Yes, and we have had several meetings with them. The level of comfort given their performance, it's quite high. We feel very good about doing this. This is just an administrative step so that they can, in essence, save you a couple of weeks.
And I believe their system came in about $1 million lower than the other earth retention system.
That is correct.
But the engineering is going to confirm.
Which is why we want to take a look.
That's why we want to take a look to make sure that that is a legitimate price.
But again, this design work would be being done anyhow. It's just being broken out because we want to stay.
And if I may,
we do not want to lose that 2 weeks.
And if I may, there is what we call peer review. We don't just take one engineering analysis of face value. There is a double checking of that, and then there is a review on your behalf so that everything is properly and technically delivered.
I just want to, I appreciate Jennifer's comments, and actually, I think it may be, while splitting hairs, important to keep some clarity on this. I think this is happening very quick, and while it's certainly happening with, I think, very appropriate due care and all the right people are on the bus to do this, more of these kinds of things as they happen, it's almost as if the invitations are in, we're doing the seating chart, we're walking down the aisle, and we haven't even asked Chrisman to marry us yet. And so I think adjusting resolutions and things as they come out, it's not the Christmas company that needs to do this, it's we that need to do this. We haven't hired a Christmas company. I think there's plenty of people in the community and certainly quite a few trades that want us to be very careful with the clarity and transparency of the process. I don't think the spirit of this resolution or this action in any way changes that approach, which we've been following, but as this is going to happen very, very quickly, I think it's very important that we have clarity moving forward that Chrisman Company has been hired for a very specific purpose. And I think it's important for clarity, at least in resolutions.
And I actually think that this helps with clarity because we have not hired Chrisman yet. We want to stay on a schedule. I think that schedule is reasonable. However, we need to break this out because we don't have anyone hired yet.
I agree with the spirit, and sitting on the committee, I see the process. I just think as this is somewhat written, I think it could be interpreted as less than clear about the intent of this engineering.
Russ?
I'd like to call the question.
Support.
All those in favor of calling the question? Say
Aye.
Aye. I think that's at least 2/3 opposed. That's 2/3. All right. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The resolution is adopted. As we just talked about, Chrisman will be providing us with a guaranteed maximum price at our next committee meeting. And if, depending upon the results of that committee meeting, they will be giving us a maximum price. We will, at that point, be discussing whether we will continue into the next phase with Chrisman. And depending upon what happens at that meeting, we may need to call a special board meeting because if we indeed do decide to go forward, we'll want to have somebody on board sooner rather than later. Other committee business, 5th and Division status. We are working on Division Street currently. Eastland is out there right now as we speak. Yeah, they started at Packard, are working their way north, and this morning I walked by and they are on the 100 block and starting to lay down pavers, and things are progressing nicely. Also, the water main work has begun. on Division. We are using, at this point, the library lot as a staging area. They are breaking up the concrete as of this, or the asphalt as of this morning, and so the water main work has begun. And I believe, are we looking at 2 or 3 weeks worth of work there, Adrian? Or
About 5 weeks.
About 5 weeks worth of work. Okay, so I hope everyone is patient while that is going on. Wayfinding signs are 80% installed. I assume we are still talking about freeway signs primarily.
They're mostly along the MDOT right-of-way, so Huron Street, North Main Street, Washtenaw are still coming, as are all those You Are Here maps are still coming. And again, as people see them going up, if you see anything that needs clarification, our sign fabricator is making modifications as the system is going in, as people are seeing any issues. So please let us know.
Yeah, I never get outside of downtown, so I haven't seen any of the outside of downtown signs. Bike loop status. It says meter post bike racks have been installed on the blocks with the e-park station machines. The pilot in-street bike rack program is very successful. The racks will be removed by the end of the month and stored over the winter. And I know that one of them was recently struck by a car.
Oh, dear.
Yes, the one on State Street. But anyway, that program has been very successful, and next summer perhaps more.
How did it hold up?
Actually, pretty well, but I think that they have tape around it because they didn't want anybody to use it. But it's not as beat up as it was described to me.
It appeared someone took a flying run through the Northview State Street intersection at a full pace because they crossed through the intersection and got to the other side of the street. Obviously, I think they were trying to make a turn and they didn't succeed. Part of what is
Is this on a football Saturday night?
Well, and I mean, that poor neighborhood, we put lampposts in and they get knocked down, we put in benches and they get knocked off, so.
What time was it when this happened?
We don't know, it's over the weekend. But the part of the design, and why the pilot program is really useful, the design of this was so well fabricated. I pointed this out to Joe, who was responsible for the good design. It was affixed to the street, and so, and I don't think it was a car, it might have been a truck, because it took a flying shot. It stayed in place. So the car next to it wasn't damaged by this thing being shoved into it. It absolutely stood as it should. And it was an example of why you try these things, and I think it's a design that, as we think about fabricating more, will replicate it. So it did what it was supposed to do.
Great.
Some people having diagnosis, so thank you.
No, there we go.
It held up well. As I said, our next Capital Improvements Committee meeting is a week from today, October 14th at 11 a.m. And again, at that meeting, we expect to get a GMP from Kristen and make some decisions. So anybody who's interested in that, please attend. Next up is transportation. John, Laura.
Thanks, John. We continued our conversations about the link. I think we've had a number of conversations now about the link, and it's been a real challenge because it's one of those things that can be all things to all people, and what are we trying to accomplish, especially from the perspective of the DDA. So we're feeling, I think as a group, we're feeling challenged by how to define what we're trying to accomplish with it, and from downtown's perspective, how it best serves the community. So what we came to is really the notion that we need some more outside input at this point, and especially in the notion of, for communities of our size, are there examples of successful circulators in other cities? So one of the things we've asked the staff to do is to go out and look for models of comparable circulators in other cities that may be somewhat similar to ours. Another thing is to contact a couple of people, Jonathan Levine at U of M, Michael Ford, AETA, and start getting some outside input and sort of professional perspective at it, both from a more sort of national point of view via Jonathan Levine, and then obviously more locally from Michael Ford's perspective. And I believe Sandy's had some conversation with Michael Ford, who seems quite interested in talking about it. And so I think it's a good opportunity for us to sort of engage some of this outside input so that we can really get somewhere on it. I think we've all struggled with this one, and my hope is that in this next couple of months we can turn the corner on how to view the link and make some recommendations to the board. second thing, I'd like to thank Nancy for the Get Downtown survey, because I think that's going to be one of those pieces that's going to be very helpful for our committee, obviously, as we understand how employees and employers use downtown, and when we start looking at things like pedestrians, bicyclists, all those alternative forms of transportation, that's going to be a great starting point. So along those lines, second thing we talked about was pedestrians. What can we do to improve downtown for pedestrians? We've put together a long sort of brainstorming list of all kinds of factors, and have asked the staff to go back and put a matrix together of all these sorts of things that tells us what other entities, what their involvement is in these things, whether it's the city, the county, all the shareholders, if you will, in some of these things, because some of them, trip hazard mitigation, seats, awnings, planter boxes, traffic control, improved storefronts, water fountains, public art, trees, traffic calming. There are all kinds of things that affect pedestrians. But as you can see from that list, there are all kinds of entities that have a share in it. And especially, for instance, now when we look at Main Street having a biz, what's their part in that? So there are a lot of potential stakeholders, but I think it's sort of an exciting opportunity. We talked earlier a lot about the biking piece of it and the idea of showers. I think it all fits into this alternative transportation mode as we define our role in it and what things we can take on. A couple of other things. We talked a little bit about where Get Downtown is going to be located. I think there's going to be more information coming on that soon. We had a conversation about an annual contest for a decorative bike hoop. Somebody had come up with this sort of a notion, and as a committee, we felt that it sounds like an intriguing and nice idea, but not sure it's really something that we want to be the sponsor of, if you will. That it may be something that it's something that if an outside entity wants to sort of take on this sort of sponsorship of artistic bike hoops. But we seem to have quite a variety of our own bike hoops going on right now, so we thought maybe that was one to steer away from a little bit. And then the last thing, if you look on page 17, we do have a resolution regarding zip cars. I'm very pleased that we've had very good success with the zip cars. You can see in the resolution the amount of dollars that we committed to, up to $42,000 to sponsor the first 4 of them, and we've spent the grand total of $3,260 to get it up and running, and for the last couple of months we've had $0 that we've put forward to it. So Zipcar contacted Nancy and said that it's time to look at adding a couple more. So this resolution is looking at the notion of adding 2 more Zipcars to the fleet. The associated dollars are shown in here, where we back it up with a maximum of $1,500 a month, up to $36,000 for a year. I wouldn't expect we're going to come anywhere near that based on the history we've had with the first 4. I think more of us have been seeing the zip cars zipping around all over, so I think it's a good one. I'd ask if somebody would like to sponsor this resolution.
Move. Support by John, supported by Lee. Discussion. Russ.
Exactly for the reasons that you said, that the zip car is successful and we haven't had to provide subsidy, I won't be supporting this resolution because we got the zip car going. It's great. It's grown. That's great. And I think Zipcar and the management folks that are involved have the opportunity now to make the decisions on whether they add or don't add additional cars without the need for subsidy. I think it was great that we invested to get it up and going because that's what it needed. A threshold had to be crossed to get the system up and going. System's up and going. I think they can make their own decisions in terms of whether it's financially viable or not. And our backstopping of that, I don't know is necessary.
Nicole?
I just wanted to have Nancy, if you could come up and answer the question about our contract. This has succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. I had no idea they were going to be popular. So tell us about.
In terms of the contract, the money that they're asking for is not going to be in any more addition to what you've already offered. And also what they had told me is this is the last time they would ask us for any subsidy. This is once they guarantee that these cars are successful, then they're not going to ask for any more subsidy of any of the other vehicles after this. But yeah, it's been very successful as far as they're concerned, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the response that I've received. And we are going to be getting a Civic and a Escape this time. So we will be getting a American-made Ford vehicle because I know that we impressed upon them that we need to do that. And they're actually going to be adding 2 more to the university fleet, which is going to be at the Student Publications Building, Maynard and Thompson in that area. And they're also going to be Ford Escapes. So there will be more, again, trying to be as mindful as they can be of the climate in this community, wanting to represent all types of vehicles, and those are going to be coming in rather soon as well. So I recognize, Russ, that we have gotten it up and running. It's being successful. This to them is, I think, that their next step to really make it completely self-sustainable is that they're asking for this request, and that's why we put the resolution forward.
Does anyone else have any questions for Nancy while she's on? No?
I just think, relating to that, you answered the first part of the question, and what you had said in the committee, and maybe you could clarify it so I'm not, because I probably don't remember anything, is that what Zipcar is finding in Ann Arbor is surprising them for the size of our market, for the success and how quickly it is. And so the fact that they're ready to take it over after 6 and just add them as they need them is still something that as a company, nationwide, they're still trying to figure out what is it unique about Ann Arbor that is allowing so many cars through ours and the university to be so successful so quickly.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Again, I think it's a testament to the fact that we have so many residents that live close to our downtown. We have the downtown that's very walkable. All of those things contribute to the ability of Zipcar to be successful. And again, I think that this also points to the positive town-gown relationship that we have, because we have all sorts of people using these vehicles, from university staff to students to residents to employees. So this is really something that's benefiting all of the users of downtown. And so I think it really reflects positively on the DDA as well, that you are supportive of all of those residents and all of those uses.
One other thing to point out too that's interesting is that with the addition of Ford Escape is a small SUV, so it's a different variety of vehicle. Most of the ones that have been up till, well, all the ones up till now are the small cars zipping around. So part of what to me is very interesting is the idea that there is a large population close by to downtown that could make use of somewhat more specialty vehicles too. My hope is that as this expands, there'll be that variety of vehicles so that it even affects the sort of behavior of both downtown residents and near downtown residents in terms of what type of vehicles and size of vehicles they own and keep. So I think it's very exciting. I think it's going to be a big wave of what we're going to see a lot more of.
I should also point out, too, that the phenomenon of car sharing in Ann Arbor is not limited to only Zipcar. If anybody's ever seen the business that goes on at the Enterprise at Huron and Chapin, they run a really brisk service there and rent a lot of cars, and every time we've rented from there, we only have 1 car, so we're Zipcar car rental people when we need to be. And it's amazing to me that there are this many people in our community that are doing car sharing through Zipcar, through traditional car rental. It's really great. I'm glad to see that we're adding more vehicles for people to use.
John?
Well, I appreciate Russ's comments on this and where he's coming from on that, but I also note, as others have said, that this moves us a little further along this path. And I think it's for a long time been a goal to make it possible for people to live in Ann Arbor without an automobile, or at least as Jennifer's family does with only one. And this moves us down. And if our experience had been any different, then I don't think I would be willing to back another 2 cars. But our experience has been that we're now at a point where we're not spending any funds, and if we can continue to do that. But it makes perfect sense that they would take it over. But I can understand why their corporate model might be that the first 6 would need to be sponsored.
And I also point out that I did ask some of you to give me some feedback on naming the cars. So we did get to name the cars, and we're hoping that one of them can be named Ellie, after Ellie Sayers, because we have to name them alliteratively to the type of vehicle it is. So that will be kind of fun.
And one after Russ.
Maybe if there's an R car, we'll try.
Do we know where these are going to be located?
I am going to be providing some feedback to the Zipcar about that. I would be interested in putting it maybe more in the Washington Street area of downtown, specifically because of some of the residents that are there now, and also because it's closer to Google. There aren't any right now on that side of town, but I'm open to any suggestions that you might have. Some of the people that we asked wanted to have them more over by the Fingerly Lumber side of town, but given football Saturdays here, that's just not probably very viable because of the issues on those evenings.
Can we name one sort of in honor of a DDA board member called Hollywood Dreamin'?
There's an H.
You want to hum
we get a Hummer.
He wants a Mercedes.
Roger, did you have?
Oh, just when you're looking at my newest merchant area that I'm supporting now, if there's anything in the South University area that might open up as a
Yeah,
possibility.
we're definitely open to that too. We also are consulting with the university to make sure that wherever they want to put their cars, that we're not bumping into them. I know that their cars that they were over by the policy school are now being moved to the Fletcher lot, and so I also just need to confer with them. But yeah, that's definitely a possibility as well. So appreciate that.
Further questions, discussion? All in favor of adopting the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The resolution is adopted. John?
I think that's it, unless anyone has any questions for me. Our next meeting is 9 o'clock on Wednesday, October 28th.
Thank you. Next up, Operations Committee, Roger Hewitt.
Lucky us, this is the meeting where we get to go over the final budget for fiscal year 2008-2009, and normally I tell you to go to page 18, but because of a little computer glitch, I'm passing out a revised financial statement.
Do we have these at the...
No.
This is different?
This is different.
Revised.
Revised revision.
Larger print next time.
Actually, Russ being the new treasurer, we're going to discuss trying to come up with some better, more understandable financial statements. That's how you suck.
We need a soundtrack.
Okay. Essentially, we're within margin of error on our budgets, with the exception that in a couple, both the TIF fund and the parking maintenance fund. What we typically do is fund engineering design fees out of, for instance, the 5th and Division project out of our TIF fund, and for the underground parking structure out of our parking maintenance fund. These can go on for these design fees can go on for several years. Once we bond, which we have now done, those two projects, those funds are then reimbursed out of the bond proceeds. We can't go back and change the previous year's financial statements because once they're audited and done, they're done with. So we have a significant inflow of cash into TIF and to parking maintenance above what was initially budgeted because of the bond reimbursements for expenses. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, our TIF income was almost 1.4 million more than budgeted, and that was, again, the funds from that bond that was sold reimbursing the TIF fund for engineering expenses for the 5th Division. Yes.
What do you know what the without the bond fund, what that number would have looked like?
The TIF revenue?
Just about spot on budget, so it was about
right.
$1.2 million.
Yeah. So yeah, the TIF income was right around just under 4 million.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. So that's the deviation on the TIF fund. Parking operations, we are, as you can see by the differential between actual and budgeted, we were very close for the year on all our numbers. Income was actually up about $500,000, almost $600,000 more than we anticipated. Operating expenses are actually down nearly $250,000 from what was budgeted. The others, so our parking fund was ended up doing significantly better than we had originally budgeted for. Parking maintenance fund again had that bond reimbursement that changed the our maintenance both our income and our reimbursement for maintenance expenses. And housing was certainly within percentages where we budgeted. Yes?
Could you explain why the bond fund reimbursement is in the parking maintenance fund instead of the parking fund?
Yeah, because we took the engineering costs out of the parking maintenance fund. That was a staff decision to take that out, and then when the bond money came through, just reimburse that parking maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions about the year-end budget?
It's nice to be older.
Yeah, yes, it is. We don't need to accept that. I don't think there's any resolution. If we want to now go to...
These are unaudited statements. Correct.
They're unaudited, but you get the audit bill.
Right, so these are merely presented as convenience for the board to give you an idea of where they end up.
Correct. They're just our quarterly report, and this happens to be the quarterly report for the end of the year.
And it's not untypical of nonprofits, all these governmental agencies, to only give an oral report at the year end because you don't want to give any official reports about the financial outcome until you do the audited statement. So I think this is a terrific benefit to the board and to the community to give this interim report.
Audit has been performed, and these numbers should match unless something comes up in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, we will have the audited numbers shortly, but they should be,
this is terrific.
We'll go, we have the financial report details and the balance sheets next. If you want to go to page 28 and 29, give our parking revenues and patron report. In both July and August, contrary to all what wisdom one would think of based on the economy, both our revenues and hourly patrons continue to increase over the previous year. July revenues are up 5%, and actually one less business day. Hourly patrons are up 21%. And in August, revenues are up 9%, hourly patrons up almost 24%. So we continue to see increased demand and increased revenue in the parking system despite the economy. I think it's one of the indications of the strength of downtown. Certainly not what you would expect, and I would imagine not what's being seen in a lot of cities and downtowns across the country. On page 30, we have our annual report of how each individual parking structure and lot did financially. If you look at the second to last line, that's basically a profit and loss number for each parking structure, which includes the debt service that might be on those structures. So if you look at Liberty Square and Ann Ashley, both who have paid off their debt, are quite profitable structures. Liberty Square particularly because there is no attendance there, so our labor costs are significantly low. And even new lots that have, new structures that have bonds on them, Forest is showing a profit even though the structure's less than 10 years old, it still has bond payments on it. Maynard has a new bond when we rebuilt it, and it was essentially virtually break even for the year. The only structure that had any significant loss is the 4th and Washington, and that's because it's a very small structure. So overall, pretty encouraging. Certainly I or Joe will answer any detailed questions somebody might have.
The parking, the fees increase already on these, are we seeing that?
Yeah, there is some increase. That would have been in July 1st, the increase went in, so that's some of it. But you see the hourly patrons are also increasing. Dramatically. We notice hourly patrons fluctuate both on time of year. I think it's availability of monthly parking and so forth.
Yeah, as I recall looking at it, I think that the number that popped was about 3%. We were up about 3% or something like that without without the increase.
Yeah, so it's still an increase in revenue, even if we had the rate increases had not gone through.
So demand is rising.
Demand is rising.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Even in this economy, demand is rising. Any other questions on financial statements or parking figures? Okay. The only other part of my report is on our parking demand management. Okay. We started out about a year and a half ago with essentially an 18-month plan to start implementing the Nelson Nygaard recommendations from Nelson Nygaard parking study, and actually, which was part of the A2D2 process, the parking part. We've essentially completed that first year and a half, that first 18-month part, and the efforts have been focused primarily on putting the infrastructure in place. Infrastructure by I mean the IT, the technical part of it, the software, the machines, the new systems needed to put a demand management system in place. So I'll just briefly go through what we've accomplished in the last 18 months. We've improved the communication between parking facilities so our test users could have their parking usage monitored for billing purposes, and there are myself and I believe at least one other board member who are part of that pilot program. We've improved the public parking systems computer system for both reliability and efficiency. We've made it possible to accept credit cards. We've improved the network security, so the system is now payment card industry compliant. We have tested our unmanned parking equipment for both effectiveness and customer attractiveness. We've installed 25 e-park stations for on-street parking, and we implemented a pilot valet program at the Maynard parking structure, which was part of the Nelson Nygaard recommendations, but certainly was a disappointing program that we've since discontinued for lack of use. So we eventually completed our first part of our demand management. We're now going to move into the pilot programming and testing these new ideas. And there are 4 general areas that the DDA staff and Republic Parking are going to be working on. Going to be looking at reducing, eliminating, and replacing permits for unlimited monthly parking as part of the demand management process of the problem with a monthly parking is there's no incentive to take anything other than to do anything other than drive. There's no financial incentive. So we are going to be looking at modifying our parking permit program, although the specifics are far from being ready to be presented. We are looking at variable pricing for both on and off street based on the demand of consumers for those parking spaces. We want to expand our e-park system with the pay stations eventually replacing all the parking meters in the DDA area. And we have a plan to purchase pilot parking equipment for the new underground structure that will be designed to fit with these demand management goals. Again, this is the general outline. The specifics are a long ways in coming. We have to make sure that we protect our revenue stream, so our bonding capacity for the parking structures remains secure. So there'll be a lot of trial and error in this. We haven't reached any decisions. We're certainly going to, as we start to come up with ideas on how to put some of these in place, we're certainly going to be vetting them through the DDA and through the larger downtown community. So there won't be surprises sprung on anybody. We're going to try to make sure everybody knows what we're thinking about doing, why we're thinking about doing it, and getting feedback before we put things in place. So we have a busy next 18 months. Okay. Any questions? Okay. And the next meeting is October 28th at 11 a.m. on Wednesday.
Thank you, Roger. Excuse me. Next, partnerships. Sandy Russ.
I'm going to start by doing a quick recap of the Energy Saving Grant Program. We just closed our second round of Phase 1 applications. So just to remind you, we have Phase 1, which is the energy audits, and a follow-up Phase 2, where there's up to a $20,000 matching grant for downtown businesses to have some of this work completed. So phase one just closed for the second time, and we had 44 applications received, and we'll go through those applications at the next meeting. There have been 7 buildings or businesses that have completed both phase one and phase two, and the DDA cost for phase two for these buildings is $26,500. That's what we've spent, and the payback in terms of energy savings is 5 years. We've got comprehensive data that Dave Conkle prepares for us on a regular basis. If you want a copy of this, I'm sure you can. It's pretty fascinating what the recommended measures are and what they actually do end up doing, what their payback time is. And so we'll go through this in more detail at the meeting. Russ.
One of the other things we've done at the Partnership Committee is kind of examine the whole Partnership Committee gestalt. We were this combined committee of research and opportunity and partnership. And what we've determined is, in a sense, we're the dumping committee of the DDA, which is okay. But it also leads to a certain lack of focus that we have at the committee. So we're discussing that. We don't want to be known as the ADD committee. So we will we'll work at that some more as we come to more clearly define what it is that our goals and objectives are as a committee, and then in terms of what we want to accomplish. Any comments that anyone has about that, we would be happy to hear them either offline or at our committee meeting a week from today.
And that does give us some opportunity, being ADD, to kind of be in lots of different places. And one of these places we went to very briefly at the end of the last meeting was to look at local currency options. And it's fascinating because a local currency, a currency in general, is just a faith-based system. It's a piece of paper, and you trade it for something of value, whether it's labor or services or an item. And it's worth something because you believe it's worth something. And the thought of a local currency is that it's worth more than the actual dollar that you spent to get it, because people see value in local. So because of this, we've thought that Ann Arbor would be a good candidate to have a local script. And we have just doing this on a hunch isn't enough. So we've commissioned the Think Local First to do a feasibility study and to come back to us probably early in 2010 to tell us what they found out, whether this is feasible, what kind of costs, what are the things involved in getting this program started. And we'll go from there.
I have a question. Is this targeted only at the DDA district, or would it be other local businesses as well?
It's all part of the dialogue, but I would imagine it would be probably start on a small basis and expand countywide.
Okay, thanks.
That's what I would envision.
It was going to start as the trade of movie tickets for downtown real estate. Working that out.
Works for me.
For a while,
For beer. For beer, yes.
So our next meeting is Wednesday, October 14th at 9 a.m. We will continue with our energy saving grant program. We will be talking about the Near North project, and there's a request for DDA funding. And city strategies for emergency winter sheltering, and what is the DDA's role in that, as well as continuing to talk about the purpose, direction of the committee.
Thank you both. Is there any other DDA business?
I have a concern about special meetings being held related to major decisions, and I was, and in combination with the comments that Ed Vilmetti made today, I was going to suggest that maybe the Partnerships Committee take up this issue, but maybe not. Maybe there's another place to do it, but I understood the need to have, until you define your purpose, maybe. maybe we could put it there. I understood the need to have the special meeting in August because we didn't have the board meeting as regularly scheduled, and so it seemed like we needed to have one to make a decision, and so that was fine. Then coming here today, hearing the comments that Ed made about the difficulty he had in finding out about when the meeting was taking place, combined with the mention that we might have another special meeting in which to accept this price on the construction piece, just raised a red flag in my mind about making big decisions such as who the construction manager for the project is going to be and what amount we're going to pay at differently scheduled meetings than our regularly scheduled board meetings. I feel like that if it happens occasionally, it's one thing, but I think that happening in such close proximity together and maybe the need to have it again to keep the project on schedule makes our decisions subject to criticism and maybe makes our decisions vulnerable. I think it kind of violates the process that we have for the public in that we have this regular calendar of meetings where we're expected to do our business, and then we schedule special ones that does big business at unscheduled, unregularly scheduled times. It's not, I feel like it disadvantages board members. I wasn't able to make the one in August because it was scheduled at a time that wasn't on my calendar and it didn't work for me. I noticed a couple other board members were absent, and so we get to not be involved in the dialogue, and I think it really disadvantages the public who are expecting to come here at noon on first Wednesday of every month, and then we pick a different random time to have a meeting to make a decision, and so they might not find us. So I just have that concern as we're moving forward that we keep in mind that we don't do this typically for other kinds of things, and so why keeping this project on schedule and not other things, expediting it. And I also want somebody to deal with the things that Ed raised about how we post our meetings and having them better noticed at City Hall and maybe in our own office.
Russ?
That being said, I don't want the public to have the notion that the DDA arbitrarily schedules meetings. If you listen carefully to what Ed Biametti said, he said if he'd have bothered to look on the DDA website or even opened his email, he could have found out about the meeting. So transparency is a key part of the DDA. Under your leadership, Jennifer, we went to television. And I think that there's a great deal of effort, time, and money spent to create the kind of transparency that a public board like this should have. And I don't want anybody to think because of circumstantial actions that there's any kind of notion that anything other than the clarity and openness that we have executed to this point and intend to execute on into the future will continue. If we can put pieces of paper taped up with Scotch tape to windows and people find that to be useful in terms of meeting notifications at our offices, we can do it, and I'm sure the staff will do it. And we, the board, will make sure that the staff does it. But I think clarity and openness is absolutely important. I think all of the board agrees with that. And the notion that either small mistakes or the need to put a meeting together to deal with the public's business in a timely way is a way to cover that up or the implication of that is not appropriate.
Lee.
I would also like to point out that one could always depend on certain local media, put a notice in the paper, publish a press release. There is no more print media, a couple days a week, and that's it. So we have a difficult time, and I notice the city is having a difficult time, of how do you legally post notices or inform the public who do not have access to computers or do not care to read their news online. So this is a big difficulty. We will try to overcome it as best we can, but it's not altogether our fault.
And I think governmental agencies are working towards that in this difficult and complicated time in public communications because of the lack of a daily newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Sandy.
I can appreciate the need to move forward because this is a major project, and having something wait until a board meeting, a regularly scheduled board meeting, could have huge ramifications in getting a project going forward. But what you might try to do is, if we do have those needs of a special meeting, is to always try to do that at noon on a Wednesday. I mean, this happened to be at 1:30 on a Wednesday, but you might always try to do it at a noon on a Wednesday, to try to have some consistency. I don't know if that's possible, but it's just a suggestion.
Thank you, it's helpful. Joan?
I don't anticipate that with the underground parking garage project that we're going to have very many more special meetings or even really any discussions at our main meeting about it. We talked about it at our last capital improvements meeting about having kind of a chart about what it is that the board will actually have to vote on as the project goes along. And I think we will have that kind of a chart. I don't think it's going to be very much. Once we get that guaranteed maximum price, it's really going to be up to, and we select the contractor, it's really going to be up to the contractor to manage it. And it's not like with the city, anything that came in over $25,000 the council had to vote on. But here in this case, once we select the contractor, it's just going to kind of move along. So probably it's that whole issue is not going to come up.
So likely one more special meeting?
Well, I was just going to comment. It's been capital improvements which has been responsible for the last couple of special meetings, and it has been related to this project. And construction is often time sensitive, and I don't enjoy calling special meetings because it does inconvenience people. I don't know that it's really a matter of transparency. I felt strongly that I wanted to get a maximum price and get somebody on board to run this project as soon as possible. So it was my wish to perhaps consider a special meeting depending upon the outcome of our next committee meeting. And I do think that this would probably be the last one necessary for quite some time. Russ?
Yeah, I can guarantee that I can't tell you the public the number of emails I get from committees trying to coordinate DDA member availability. And that's so that everyone on the DDA board can participate and then let folks know. But there's always going to be anecdotal evidence that somebody didn't know about something, and I only provide this as an illustration of such. The Michigan Theater does a family series of children's shows, and we one day had a mom come up to us, and she wanted to get a ticket for her kid, herself and her kid, and she wanted to get tickets very close to the stage, and there weren't any tickets close to the stage because the performance was in a couple of days, and she got very indignant and angry and said, well, your publicity must have been really lousy because I didn't find out about this until yesterday. But if our attendance was so lousy, how could the theater have been sold out if she couldn't have gotten her tickets so close? So there's always opportunity for folks to miss messages, even if it's something that they think and would like to be very important to them. And I believe, and I think every single DDA board member believes, that transparency and informing the public to the best of our ability, and if there's things that we can do to make it better, then we will do that.
Yeah, nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded.
Yeah.
How about, I'm going to suggest this because I too believe all of us want transparency. Could we perhaps, with cameras on at our regular meeting, set a tentative date and time for the special meeting so everyone is aware of it, perhaps on the Wednesday when there are no committee meetings at noon, which would be 2 weeks?
Well,
and then we either use it or we wait till the next meeting.
I think at this point we were trying to wait until after the Capital Improvements Committee meeting to find out whether a special meeting was necessary, or we felt a special meeting was necessary. But we could, I suppose, set something up tentatively.
And we either use it or we don't.
Either use it or we don't.
So I would move that we have a tentative special meeting 2 weeks from today. That's the date without...
October 21st.
That's the date without
no
committee meetings, right? Okay.
It's okay.
At noon?
I will support that.
Okay.
We will reconfirm that following the committee's decision whether or not they need to hold it. And we'll let you know either way. And we'll let our media friends know either way.
Okay. So we've We have a motion, we have a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So moved. Any other DDA business matters, Newcomb? Oh, I'm sorry, no, but if
Just
the discussion on this matter is...
This discussion, I think, isn't just about transparency or special meetings. This is about communication, and I think we can all recognize we could be better at it. I think we've publicly said, boy, we need to communicate better, and I think especially what this shows is that we're in the business of helping the downtown be successful, and business is good. That means that in these trying times, people are going to care a lot about where this money goes. And I think an overall understanding and acknowledgments that we've got to communicate better what we're doing, how we're doing, not just posting meetings, not just making sure that things are televised and supported, but properly talking about here's where this money's going, here's why it's going this way, and here are the direct baselines and results. And we don't have a communications committee. We don't have a coordinated marketing plan. These are things that I would hope that someday would become important to us as we're spending a significant amount of the public money here. And we'll continue to do so, and as times continue to suss out here, more and more people are going to be at our door wanting to make sure that we spend this money appropriately. So I think this conversation speaks to that, perhaps more than just, I missed a special meeting. I think the next couple of years are going to be very trying for everybody, as we all know, and I think our ability to better communicate what we're doing and why we're doing it is going to be critical to our ability to do it. And I think we should look at that more and maybe put some time and money behind that.
I think we should dump that on partnerships.
I
second that.
I think it was discussed in partnerships at one point.
I agree.
A communications committee, and again, yes, that is something that the partnerships could.
And it's something that we looked into.
Could talk about.
One of the reasons we went so aggressively into a website and keep expanding the public information that's there on the website, and so I think we can continue to do that. The other, besides the ticket story, the other anecdotal bit about this kind of thing is that there are two things that you can never do enough of: marketing and cleaning. Because no matter how much you do, you can always do a little bit more.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Is it John?
Yeah, I did have a couple of things. I just wanted to note that communities across the country that are interested, there's really not very many of us that have won, that play Solar Cities. There's 25 of us and some other communities that have won the kind of awards Ann Arbor has as far as their proactivity in this nature, are looking at ways to take what the DDA is doing in the downtown area and make that work throughout the community to help people become more energy efficient. And now we have the federal government credits that are coming online, and it's even easier to do that. But I just wanted to remark that the data that is being collected is very, very valuable about how many people are applying for it, about the progress being made, the numbers involved, and things like that. Because it's something that we on the Energy Commission, we've been looking at this for some time, and we're looking around for a way to set up that initial source of funding, and then, of course, as people go down the road with these improvements, they would pay back into the fund and it would be replenished. But just so you know that this is groundbreaking and very well thought of in the people who worry about energy issues. And Sandy raised a point that I wanted to just bring you up to speed on. Some of us on City Council, well, actually the whole City Council has recognized this, but a few of us, Sandy and her fellow councilwoman from the First Ward, Sabre Briere, and myself have been working on an issue in anticipation of a very tough winter in regards to the population that is at risk and people who may not have a roof over their head this winter. And the reasons are obvious for this with the economy, but also very practical reasons in that shelters across the whole of Southeast Michigan and maybe beyond are already maxed out. There's unprecedented, in some ways, numbers of people that need to be housed this winter, and there's a tough time coming up. And in her role as both a DDA member and a county commissioner, Commissioner Gunn is involved too, because this is not just a city task. Obviously, the people that we see on the streets are people who are living in some of the tent communities around town. They didn't all originate here, and this issue has always been a city-county partnership. But we are looking at practical ways that we could add about 50 more beds for the winter for the population for single adults. And we are also looking at ways of adding beds for families that may be without housing. And one of the points that we've come up with, even though there's some folks that are pushing the idea of tent communities in our community, we don't think people should be outdoors in tents with heaters inside of them in a Michigan winter. That could create a lot of problems. Fires, obviously, sanitation, all sorts of problems. So our goal is to almost double the available beds for the winter period, so that people would be indoors, and we would really make a proactive effort. In order to get started on that, we've started to talk about this. In order to be ready for it, I should say, we've started to talk about this. And working with the professionals in the field, people from the shelter, people from Port that handles folks that have some special problems, and working with the family shelter. And we've added Susan to our talking group. She also serves on the board of Dawn Farms, as well as her role here at the DDA. So there may well be a role for the DDA to pay, not a horribly expensive role, but a role to pay in trying to meet the challenge of what we expect to be a really rough winter, given the economy and the way things have been going. So we're trying to approach this again and plan for it rather than be trying to make up as we go along later on into the winter. And we really need to have some plans in place by the end of November. So that's what our goal is, and I'm sure you'll be talking about it at partnerships, and it may well be back at this table for some aid and just information at our next meeting.
We'll be at a 3-hour partnerships meeting again.
No, because you cut us off.
Anyone else? I just want to take a moment on a lighter note to thank staff for the groundbreaking ceremony on Thursday. Everybody except Joe Morehouse. I know it was a lot of hard work, and I think that things went off very well. So thank you all for all your hard work. Any other DDA business? Any other members of the audience who would like to address the board? Please tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Stephen Langranzini, and I know some of you because I've worked with some of you on some of the city boards, and I know some others of you from other venues in town. I happen to be a downtown resident, live at 1 North Main Building. Very happy there. I happen to bicycle to work. The bank's on Washington Avenue. I'm president of University Bank. Have been for 21 years. I'm also president of the Ann Arbor Economic Development Corporation, and also where another has vice chairman of the Washtenaw County Economic Development Corporation. I have two issues just wanted to draw to your attention. One is the City of Ann Arbor, through the ERA Economic Recovery Act, has $17 million of tax-free bonding authority that was allocated to it. It's really quite a boon. The value of that to the city is about $6 million of net present value of dollars, because of the cost savings that a business could get by issuing tax-free bonds instead of fully taxed bonds. It can be used for any economic development purpose. In addition to the city money of $17 million, there's $33 million of county money that was allocated to Washtenaw County. So for any one or more projects located in the city limits, since I'm working hard to try to coordinate the efforts of the county EDC and the city EDC being the only member on both boards, there is a possibility for up to $50 million of bonding authority, tax-free bonding authority for one or more projects that would be located in the city limits. Of course, $33 million outside the city limits. The bonds have to be at least a $2 million minimum size, just a practicality issue. It's not a legal issue because the cost of bond counsel, the issuance of each bond is expensive. So $2 million minimum is the practical minimum. And it also must be backed by the credit of a bank or something equivalently strong in credit rating to a bank. So it needs to be a bankable project. The interest rate currently on Wall Street for such tax-free bonds, long-term bonds, is about 3.5%. So you can imagine, instead of borrowing at 6 or 7 or 8%, if you can borrow at 3.5%, it's a very good deal. You can save a lot of interest over the course of a project. That can make a marginal project or marginal investment a very strong and economically viable project. So it's an opportunity for us for economic development for the city, and that's why I'm bringing it to your attention. The second issue I want to discuss with you today is follow up on the discussion earlier about the local currency. I believe the local currency is an excellent economic development idea. For those of you who don't know me, you probably surprised to learn that I started my banking career up in Newbury and Sault Ste. Marie in the eastern Upper Peninsula. Well, while I was there, I actually started a local currency in the eastern Upper Peninsula. It was very successful. My bank was the issuer of that currency, and during the course of the year that we had the project going, we issued about $500,000 of local currency, and this is it. I mean, here's an example. I had to save some. We had an illustration from Courier and Ives that we turned into Tequamanon Falls. Really not Tequamanon Falls, but we turned it into Tequamanon Falls. And we had the local currency printed by an international firm that prints 160 currencies, the actual national currencies around the world. It was serialized, and at that time, 20 years ago, it was the best technology for security printing available. Today, I would say you need to have holograms and other things because we have rapidly developed our technology with digital color copiers. So, but all that's very feasible. So some of the concerns raised in the local media about security, they're really not there. There are cost-effective ways to do this with better security than the U.S. currency, frankly, because our U.S. government does not incorporate all the best practices in its own currencies. It can be profitable. We had 30,000 people in the region that were involved in the program. It was a profitable program for the bank. It increased local shopping, decreased purchases out of the area. I've talked with Ingrid Ault from Think Local First about this, gave her a lot more information. There's a lot of nuances with this. There's things that on the surface matter a lot that we learned by going through the School of Hard Knocks. I like to joke that my master's is an MSHK, the Master's of the School of Hard Knocks, so gave Ingrid a lot of information about that. I do have some concerns. One is...
I'm sorry, could you, your time limit is up.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, did you not hear? So if you could wrap up, please.
If I could, I will meet after the meeting, and
Wonderful.
I'd love to take that down to make sure that we're informed. Would that work?
Sure.
Thank you
Fantastic.
very much.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the board? Someone would like to move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Roger Hewitt, seconded by Russ. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
If anybody wants their t-shirt, they're here.